Part 25. The heroine who wears fast is really a boss. Author, Ruo Shui 1111. Chapter 241. The emperor has been unfilial, disrespectful, and disobedient time and time again, and now he has shown a tendency to disregard his country and his ancestors for the sake of his beauty. For the ministers and elders, the disappointment is already palpable. But this is not over yet. The emperor was dissatisfied with everyone's expressions, so he simply took another step for himself. Not only do I want to protect Beauty Qiu, but I also want to make her my concubine. The emperor knew very well that even if these people would not quarrel with him now, they would still attack Kyoqiu if he turned around. He had no choice. If he didn't want Kyoqiu to die, he could only protect her behind him. The throne he cared about most had become a joke, and he couldn't let the person he cared about most disappear. The emperor was determined and his whole person became more ruthless. Everyone present was in a daze, feeling as if they had never known the emperor before. Your Majesty, even ordinary people in the city still want to have face, not to mention that we are a royal family. Prince Hung was so angry. When the late emperor was in power, he had been in charge of the clan for decades. No emperor has ever said that he was shameless in pretending to be drunk, let alone going crazy for a dishonest woman. Needless to say, no matter what happens today, I will protect concubine Qiu. After the emperor said this, he personally took Yerukiu's hand and left without looking back. The whole hall was silent. After a few breaths, I heard the sound of a broken porcelain cup being pushed. Several people were angry. Your Majesty's wings are hardened, and we will no longer be in his eyes. The concubine walked up to the old man of the Chen family and bowed. My daughter has tried her best. But the emperor obviously does not share our hearts. My daughter is sorry for the ancestors of the Chen family. The concubine just shed tears, and then she fell down again. This is unreasonable, Prince Hung spoke again. The queen mother died early, and the princess treated the emperor well. Before the emperor ascended the throne, the princess took care of the late emperor's harem for many years. All civil and military officials in the court saw the princess as if they were seeing the queen mother. Today is the princess's birthday, and everyone is here to participate, but isn't it because of the respect for the concubine's years of hard work and merit? But today, on the concubine's birthday, the emperor made the concubine faint with anger twice and interrupted her many times. It was extremely disrespectful and unfilial. Such an emperor has clearly failed the late emperor. Ashamed of the ministers who assisted him with all their strength. Can everyone not be angry? Within one day, the whole palace was in chaos. It was unheard of. In broad daylight, the concubines were having sex, the emperor was acting recklessly, the guards committed suicide, and assassins were rampant. To put it bluntly, the emperor had too much power in the court, they held most of the power. But most of the power in the palace is in the hands of the emperor. With everything going on today, if the emperor is careless, it means he is not capable enough. How can one manage a country if one palace cannot be managed well? But if he meant it, that would be a bit heartbreaking. People can be taught if they are not capable, but if they have bad conduct, it will not be easy to correct them. Even though we worked hard, it turned out to be a joke in the end. The emperor threw up his sleeves and left. Obviously he didn't intend to take care of today's affairs anymore. We can't just ignore it. After today, it can be seen that there are problems with defense, not only the emperor's guards, but also the guards in the entire palace. Let's help put things in order. It is not convenient for us foreign ministers to interfere in palace affairs, so why not leave it to Prince Hung and the Queen to negotiate and arrange it? Prince Hung nodded, I can do my best. The Queen also nodded, I will do my best to prevent such a scandal from happening again. Tao Ran drank tea quietly. By this point, most power in the palace had been transferred from the emperor's hands. At this moment, the number of people the emperor can use is already stretched thin. The personal guards and secret guards entrusted to him by the late emperor should not be out of his control for long. It feels quite good to be the boss behind the scenes. No one paid attention to her, but she was the promoter of all incidents. The key is, it's easy. Her job is basically to talk, and the rest of the time she drinks tea and watches movies. When she thought about the original vicious setting of the woman in the script, she felt happy. Seeing her completing the difficult plot so easily, that woman would probably have a heart attack from anger. Tao Ran knew that after today, the attitude of the group of loyal veterans behind the emperor must have changed drastically. As for the emperor, the power he originally held in his hands was gone sooner or later. As long as he continues to work hard and makes the confrontation between the emperor and the veterans more serious, it will be sooner or later that the emperor fundamentally angers the ministers, loses the support of the people, and is completely ignored. In the plot, he caused civil servants and military generals to fight so hard that both sides suffered losses. This time, he will be the enemy of the whole world. This kind of revenge is probably what Yutong wants to see the most, right? Prince Ning has come into the sight of many people today. He was responsible for hunting down the fake father-in-law and preventing the assassination of Rong Jiu. The ministers sighed slightly. Prince Ning, this is another good thing done by the emperor. King Ning is busy guarding the border in the south, protecting his family and country. How can he be threatened? He insists on recalling people, which is really overkill. At this moment, Prince Ning volunteered. Since I have captured these dead soldiers, why not let me be responsible for trying to get them to speak? Then there's King Laoning. All the ministers looked at Prince Ning highly. There are not many capable and responsible people in the royal family. Prince Ning glanced over, and when he saw Tao Ran, he raised his eyebrows slightly. Today in the guest house, the two had a brief exchange. At that time, he asked directly, why did the imperial concubine repeatedly set her sights on these young male guests at the banquet? At that time, Tao Ran was stunned by his question. She didn't expect that Prince Ning was not only powerful, but also careful. There were so many people at the banquet that even she noticed the attention she paid to the male guests. Tao Ran didn't reply to him, but asked him why he came to the guest house to look for someone in such a hurry even though he knew that the emperor was drunk, and what else had to be said right now? What about the noble concubine? Isn't she just like me? Prince Ning was more cheerful than her, saying that he had noticed from the banquet that the emperor was a little unnatural. I have good eyesight and can see a lot. I also have a good nose. It turned out that eunuch he had discovered that the emperor's wine had been replaced by water. So he didn't believe that the emperor was drunk at all, so he came here. The king, like the noble concubine, is worried about the emperor and wants to serve. They are both smart people, and they can tell right away that the other person's intentions are not good. Prince Ning was particularly curious about the imperial concubine at that time. This beloved concubine went on a rampage and almost had sex with the emperor's confidant, not to mention inviting him to wait for the emperor in the guest house. No matter how hard Prince Ning judged him, he didn't notice the concubine's love for the emperor. Instead, the concubine tried to win over him. The taste of. The reason why Tao Ran did this was because he was deliberately testing Prince Ning and eunuch. He went to such lengths to insist on entering the hospital, which really didn't seem to have good intentions. She invited her intentionally, but not only did he not avoid suspicion, he actually waited in the courtyard openly. Just like her, there is a feeling that if the emperor doesn't show up, he will wait forever. Knowing clearly that the emperor and eunuch he were deceitful, but still doing this, could this be a good intention? With the idea that even the enemy's enemies might be able to win over, Tao Ran said seemingly unintentionally, His Royal Highness Prince Ning has extraordinary military power. There has been a lot of trouble in the palace recently. You may have heard about the assassination of me in the front line. Prince Ning is always around the emperor. It's good to move around. Maybe you can achieve great achievements. No wonder the empress is so affectionate. The empress is really considerate of the emperor. Prince Ning raised his eyebrows and looked at the imperial concubine, secretly testing her. Your Highness is wrong. I am thinking about you. Oh. The two seemed to talk a lot, but they seemed to say nothing. The heroine who wears fast is really a boss. Author, Ruo Shui 1111. Chapter 242. Yerukia followed the emperor and moved into Funing Palace. She was a little pleased. Either way, she's on the table. From now on, she will be a true beloved concubine, and no one will bully her or humiliate her again. She finally left Chusiu Palace. She moved into the most luxurious and spacious palace in the entire palace. She had dozens of servants waiting on her. She just wanted to get up and dance. However, the emperor was not interested in having fun with her. If you hadn't been patient and forced me to see you, how could this be the case now? The emperor was really drunk and drank one glass after another. All my plans have come to nothing. Prince Hung's question about whether he really wanted to give up everything for a woman kept echoing in his ears, and he couldn't erase it no matter what. If you had asked him 5 years ago, of course he would have chosen his beloved. But after he tasted the taste of power, he couldn't let it go. He was in pain. Now his reputation is ruined. If he becomes a puppet completely in the future, what will be the difference from 5 years ago? That would be more painful. The emperor didn't see Yerukia bursting into tears. Her Goro actually blamed her and said it was all her fault. But she was suffering, so what was wrong with asking him for help? She is sad. Yerukia soon became even more distressed. Because the imperial doctor told her that the scratch on her face caused by Jirong's nails might leave marks even if it heals well. Goro, will you dislike me? The emperor was thinking about his own affairs and ignored her. Yerukia cried. Sobbed again and again. Stop crying. Cry, 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 what else can you do besides cry? Do you know how to share my worries? The emperor roared. Wu Lang, you. Yerukia was heartbroken again and rushed directly into the inner room. Sure enough, compared with his future, I am nothing worth mentioning. In one night, all the absurd things happened throughout the day had spread throughout the capital. Of course, after careful polishing, the storyline is more ups and downs, more exciting, and more able to arouse the public's appetite. The emperor favored the adulterous concubine, and he did not hesitate to confront the old ministers and disobey the concubine because of the adulterous concubine. This was because he was unjust, unfaithful, unfilial, and ignorant of etiquette. This may only be a side to the common people, but to the officials and officials for knowledgeable people, this is especially unacceptable. As a result, the emperor was asked to stay away from the demon concubine, execute the demon concubine, and ask the emperor to cleanse himself and take care of himself. Zhejiang flew to the court like snowflakes. Begwin held back his words and wanted to give advice. However, they waited from dawn until the sun was halfway up, but they did not wait until the emperor came to court. Just after taking over eunuch he, the newly appointed eunuch who came to report, today's morning meeting is cancelled. Why cancel it? Begwin was also a little angry. Since it was cancelled, why didn't you apply earlier? Is it fun to sneak them away and let them stand here for a few hours? It's the emperor's wish. Eunuch who was a concubine, spoke with an extraordinary ability to add fuel to the fire. I dare to ask eunuch who, did the emperor invite the concubine to sleep with him last night? Not at all. The emperor has concubine Chiu waiting for him, so he didn't turn over the sign. What kind of concubine is Chiu? Is she that Chiu beauty? I heard that she has not been officially canonized. Did the emperor go through the queen to register the concubine? Eunuch who lowered his head and said nothing. Is the emperor still with concubine Chiu right now? Eunuch who did not deny it, Your Majesty had a few too many drinks last night. Demon concubine. Such enchanting concubines have entangled the emperor to the point where he ignores government affairs, which is simply abominable. An old minister couldn't help but cursed, threw up his sleeves and left. The ministers were also unhappy. The emperor really didn't care. His reputation was ruined. He was also obsessed with his women. It was just nonsense. All the ministers left angrily. The emperor deliberately did not go to court early. One can imagine what kind of situation he will face after showing up today. He will be lectured, forced, and tortured, and he will be scolded by them until he finds a hole in the ground. They forced him to go to the late emperor's soul to reflect. They tortured and punished Kyokyuu. He doesn't want to face it. Why should he be so angry? Wasn't it enough that you spent the whole day yesterday? Even if he is a coward. However, even though he did not go to court, those pieces of advice were still piled in front of him. At first glance, they all demanded the execution of Chiumiran. The emperor was angry, but Yerukia cried until she died. Otherwise, Goro, just let me die. If I die, they won't force Goro. Goro won't have to be so embarrassed. Don't cry, bad luck. I won't let you die. At this time, even if you don't steam the steamed buns, you still have to argue. If he regresses again, they will never take him seriously. He is the legitimate emperor, and they are all sanctimonious gentlemen. Since they are loyal to the emperor, how dare they depose him and destroy him? The emperor went to Cunning Palace at that time and asked the queen to put the phoenix seal on his imperial edict of making Yerukia his concubine. The queen naturally refused. I cannot be a disloyal, unfilial, or rebellious person. Yerukia violated the palace rules and should be executed. Are you scolding me for being unfaithful, unfilial, and rebellious? The emperor is determined to have his own way, and sooner or later everyone will betray their relatives and leave. The queen deliberately sarcastic, and her words went straight to the emperor's heart. The emperor lost all face and couldn't help but slap him away. This is good. The queen just closed the door, indicating that she was seriously ill. The emperor was angry and said directly, since you are ill, let's take a good rest. I have given my instructions and leave all harem matters in the hands of the noble concubine. Taoran laughed when he heard this. At this point, are you still trying to sow discord between her and the queen, deepen the hatred, and divert conflicts? So, Taoran directly announced to the public that she was accidentally caught in the rain last night and was injured again, so she had to stay behind closed doors to recuperate. The emperor had no choice but to let the concubine Xian, who was favored recently, take over the power. The concubine Xian is not stupid, and the old man in the family can be regarded as a representative of the civil servants. Wouldn't she harm the family by interfering at this time? She coughed non-stop for a while and also reported illness. The emperor was so angry that he almost vomited blood. How? Are all his women rebelling too? Do they dare to look down on him? Princess Hankin happened to enter the palace to help the queen arrange the harem affairs. The first thing she heard was that the emperor had beaten the queen and took away the queen's power. Is this a big deal? In just an hour, this matter spread to the previous court again. Prince Hung, the old man of the Chen family, the concubine, and a minister of Guming all came to Funing Hall to ask for an audience with the emperor. The emperor knew their purpose and refused to see them directly. The concubine was once again fainted by the emperor. The two old men and Prince Hung cursed the evil concubine outside the Funing Palace. However, the emperor made the three of them stand in the scorching sun for a whole hour without saying a word of concern. When the three of them left, their hearts felt a little colder. And this matter spread again when he went to court the next day. Everyone was holding back their breath, but once again, they didn't wait for the emperor to come. Is that evil concubine still in the emperor's palace? An old minister asked eunuch Hu. Chiu Mei is not feeling well. The old minister was furious. The demon concubine is not feeling well, and she still needs the emperor to serve her. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. The demon concubine is in charge. This means that the previous dynasty will happen again. From now on, won't the king come to court early? The concubine is not allowed to spend the night in the Funing Palace. This is an ancestral rule. The demon concubine is lustful, the emperor is bewitched. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The heroine who wears fast is really a boss. Author, Ruo Shui 1111. Chapter 243. On that day, 4 ministers who cared about life gathered outside Funing Hall and asked to see the emperor. The emperor had regarded this as a game. Whoever retreated first would lose, so he naturally refused to see him again. The old men still waited for a long time and failed to see the emperor. The 4 of them smiled bitterly and then sneered. They are the biggest clowns. They felt that they could not live up to the late emperor and the country. On the way back, the 4 of them were all silent, as if they were thinking. That night, the queen dutifully went to the Funing Palace. She and her minions were aggressive and wanted to capture Yerukiu. The emperor was furious, summoned his secret guards, and directly attacked the people brought by the queen. The queen's people did not get any advantage, 2 were seriously injured and 3 had their limbs broken. Let me say it again, concubine Qiu is mine. As long as I am still the emperor, you can never touch her. The queen wished that he would say more such outrageous things, the better. How long does the emperor plan to make trouble? Will he not go to court in the future? As long as you accept concubine Qiu, I will go to court. Isn't it natural for the emperor to go to court? Why does the emperor's throne depend entirely on concubine Qiu's eyes? The queen's control is too lenient. If you are not satisfied with me, you can hand over the Phoenix Seal. Your Majesty wants to hand over the Phoenix Seal to Yerukiu. There is no need to explain my affairs to you. Does your Majesty mean to abolish your concubines? Queen, ask yourself, do you behave like a wife? You boss your husband around, and you can't tolerate a concubine. If you were like this among the people, I would have sent you back to your parents' home with a divorce letter. So, I still want to thank the emperor for his unfailing kindness. It's good that you know. If you restrain yourself, I can tolerate you, otherwise. But the queen turned and left before he finished speaking. Although the emperor said harsh words, he didn't feel any pleasure at all. Instead, he felt even more slapped in the face. He jumped to his feet and shouted to the queen, but the queen did not look back. Instead, she shouted loudly, "If the emperor wants to depose me, please do it yourself. If the emperor wants to make Yerukiu the queen, you can do it. The emperor is obsessed with things, who else doesn't know? My concubine behaves and sits upright, and thinks she is worthy of the late emperor. But what about the emperor?" The queen walked at the front with a loud voice. Behind her, a group of servants carried the mournful guards with broken arms and legs, bruised noses and faces, through the palace. Everyone in the palace felt ridiculous. Your Majesty, are you really crazy? That Yerukiu has no sense of shame or self-respect. She has made countless enemies in the palace and has cut off contact with her sister. Her family has no money and power, and she herself has a damaged appearance. She has no talent, no appearance, no connections, and no ability. How could a person with no family background be so fascinated by the emperor that he would not hesitate to oppose the ministers for her, break up with the queen, and violate the ancestral rules to raise her in the palace as his sole favor? No one can figure it out. Is it possible that Yerukiu is really a monster and has committed suicide? Not only in the palace, various opinions also appeared in the market starting from that night. It was said that Yerukiu grew up in the countryside, but she was actually supported by a fox demon. The emperor accidentally got infected with it, so the demon concubine used the method of bewitching and fascinated the emperor, in order to destroy the peace of one place and disturb the peace of the country. The rumor spread quickly. It is said that the night Yerokiu was born, there were strong winds, heavy rain, lightning, and thunder, and Yerokiu was unable to give birth. It was not until a servant of the Ye family was killed by the thunder and lightning that Yerokiu was successfully born. It is said that Yerokiu has been able to seduce people since she was a child. She never followed the rules of ladies and gentlemen, and often went out to wander around, charming all the young men within a few miles. The emperor, who was still the fifth prince at the time, also fell in love with her at first sight, and from then on he could not look at her no matter how beautiful she was. It is said that the emperor always hid his beauty in a golden house and set up a palace for Yerokiu to protect her. The reason why the emperor has been doting on the imperial concubine in recent years is also to provide cover for Yerokiu. Rumors like this always spread quickly among the people, and almost everyone knows about it in one day and night. But such rumors will only arouse people's gossip. In fact, it is another terrible theory that has been circulated that makes people panic. It is said that recently, there has been a dense atmosphere above Funing Hall. Instead of being cheerful, it always feels gloomy. It is also common for palace maids and eunuchs to see white shadows floating nearby. Some people argue that wherever the emperor is, he will be protected by dragon energy. Could it be that the dense mist covers the dragon energy? Someone found many dead cats outside the palace wall. It should be noted that cats are psychic. Others discovered that the century-old locust tree beside the imperial city was also dead. Who doesn't know that the locust tree connects yin and yang, but this means that communication is incompetent and yin and yang are confused, so it leads to self-destruction. There were also woodcutter and fishermen near the Ye family's old house. They accidentally got stones on the mountain and in the sea respectively. There were characters on them, which looked like two words, demon chaos. Is this word a warning? A Taoist priest passed by, and he set up a formation to refine it, and everyone gathered around to watch. As a result, in full view of everyone, the stone finally turned red. The Taoist priest burst into tears and bluntly said that if the evildoers are not eliminated, the country will not be able to survive. At this time, the people were agitated. This time, not only the officials, but also the people began to feel anxious. Especially there are rumors in the palace that the emperor wants to abolish the queen for the demon concubine. Is this okay? The Chen family has such a strong foundation, but the emperor doesn't even want a backer, which shows how deceived they have been. Public resentment against the emperor gradually grew. And that morning, the emperor still didn't show up. He had an impulsive fight with the queen the day before, but gave up when he sobered up. I didn't dare to face it again for a while. This time the emperor did not attend court early, which seemed to be expected by everyone. Everyone was really disappointed. No one went to Funing Hall to ask for an audience. From that day on, the emperor could not attend the morning court, and the ministers seemed not to care. The emperor panicked. Because of the news from his secret guards, the public has been very unhappy with him recently. Not only were people scolding Yerokiu, they also paid no attention to him as the emperor. They often scolded him together. Many people bluntly said that he was not worthy of being the emperor at all. Some people also wrote anonymous letters to the government and the clan Prince Hung, saying that it was not the queen who should be deposed, but him, the emperor. Those who are incompetent and mediocre, self-righteous, and favor evildoers will sooner or later fall to the fate of King Zhou. This time, the emperor didn't even dare to escape. That day he suddenly arrived at the Jinluan palace early and found that no one was waiting for him to make his morning appearance. He personally went to the various yamen of the previous dynasty and found that without him, the ministers still went to their respective yamen, led by 4 adults to discuss affairs, and everything was in order. The sense of crisis came immediately. It seems that with or without him, there is not much difference. He, the emperor, really has no sense of existence anymore. When he went to the harem, it was no longer like usual. The concubines were eager to pounce on him. His beloved concubines all turned from joy to bewilderment when they saw him, then they stopped laughing, bowed lightly, and kept at least 3 feet away from him. Instead of begging for favor, there was only alienation. Everyone hesitated to speak, and finally remained silent. In fact, not only the concubines, but also the palace people were in almost the same state. Everyone deliberately kept a distance from him. Everyone rebels against their relatives, he thought of the queen's curse that day. The emperor was angry, so he drew his sword and chopped at the peach forest, hoping to vent his anger. As a result, after a while, rumors filled the palace again. The peach tree warded off evil spirits. As soon as the emperor walked in, he seemed to have been attacked and chopped down like crazy. As expected, Your Majesty has been seriously entangled by evil spirits. The heroine who wears fast is really a boss. Author, Ruo Shui 1111. Chapter 244. The emperor suddenly thought of Yutong. That woman really loved him, was always helping him, and was obediently used by him. She might be able to give him solace. He couldn't help but go to Yukon Palace. However, when he reached the gate of Yukon Palace, he suddenly remembered that it was because of the concubine's troubles in the guest house that he made a fool of himself last time. On that day, he was made things difficult for him by his ministers, and the imperial concubine did not speak up for him. Later, he asked the imperial concubine to take over the power, but the imperial concubine refused. His concubine didn't seem to be as sincere to him as before. Thinking of this, the emperor stopped communicating with the palace people and walked into Yukon Palace with a gentle step. The imperial concubine was lying on a bamboo chair under the grape trellis, staring blankly at the bunches of grapes above her head. The emperor looked behind the flower window. The palace maid was telling some of the rumors in the palace just now. The imperial concubine slapped the table and a cup fell to pieces. Let's see who arranged it again for the emperor to slap everyone in his mouth. Next time, he will just pull out his tongue. Is it the queen again? That's too much. The husband and wife are one, what good will it do her if the emperor is unlucky? My dear, don't be angry, you are not in good health. How is it that I asked my father and brother to settle the rumors outside the palace? There is no news yet, but the master and the young master will do their best. Your Majesty, I have tried my best. The imperial concubine sighed quietly. The emperor behind the wall had a heartbeat, and for a moment, tears almost filled his eyes. His beloved concubine was still thinking of him. In the entire palace, concubine AI is probably the only one still thinking about him, right? Sure enough, only his Tong Tong had his best interests at heart and could share his worries the most. The palace maid served lychees. Don't eat. Where's this ice bowl? I like it, can you take a bite? How can I still eat an ice bowl at this time? Please withdraw. Your Majesty, I haven't had lunch, so you should eat more or less. Otherwise, you will feel uncomfortable again later. I'm not in the mood, can't you hear me? Your Majesty, you have been looking at the grapes. Do you want to eat them? Please go wash a bunch of them, please. Grapes, how can you eat these grapes? I think the emperor personally planted these grapevines for me. In the blink of an eye, so many years have passed, and things have changed. I only see new people smiling, but how can I hear old people crying? The emperor left this to me. For the palace, these are the only grapes left. Keep them as a thought. The imperial concubine began to wipe away tears. Give me some wine. Your Majesty is drunk every day, how can your body bear it? It's good to be drunk, there's everything in the wine. The imperial concubine wiped away her tears. My beloved concubine, the emperor's eyes turned red. These days, Why doesn't he rely on wine to numb himself every day? Sure enough, only his beloved concubine could empathize with him. I'm here. Tao Ran stood up suddenly, turned around abruptly, and then gave the emperor a mixed look that went from surprise to excitement to restraint, and finally pretended to be indifferent. After that, she turned around and sat back indifferently. What else is the emperor doing here? Of course I'm here to see my beloved concubine. I can't bear the word beloved concubine. I thought the emperor had forgotten where the gate of Yukon Palace was opened. The grapes here are ripe, my concubine. I'm thinking about them, so naturally I want to come and eat them with my concubine. He looked at Yutong with tenderness in his eyes. Yes, this is his beloved concubine. His face was arrogant, but in his heart it was all about him. The imperial concubine always behaves like this. The emperor was greatly moved and satisfied. Everyone in the palace, including his Kaiokyu, seemed to be a different person to him recently, and could do nothing to help him except cry. Only Tong Tong treated him as before, trying his best secretly, but still looking calm on the face. Such a woman is the most practical and well-behaved. He was so comforting. Tao Ran snorted and ignored him. Acting is not difficult, the main thing is that the opponent is too disgusting. Forget it, just focus on honing your acting skills. Tao Ran was shocked when he heard that the emperor was coming. At that time, she had just asked people to serve the ice bowl, and wanted to have a good meal. She was thinking about what the next step should be to arrange a fake master to enter the palace and continue to lower the reputation of the emperor and Yerukyu. Or are you making a fuss about the Ye family? Or discuss with the queen before going to Funing Hall to cause trouble? What method should be used to force the emperor to jump over the wall? No way, her task is still very difficult. She had to drive the emperor out of office. But as long as the emperor does not make fundamental mistakes, even if he is a puppet emperor who has no regard for government affairs, and relies on the support of capable ministers, I am afraid that this dynasty can live smoothly for 10 or 8 years. She doesn't have that much time. So she had to think of ways to create trouble, urge the emperor to make mistakes, force the officials to endure it, and at the same time take away the few remaining rights from the emperor. As for the queen being in the light, her method of being in the dark is obviously still the best. So when the emperor came in, what he saw was her lying on the couch and sending affectionate gifts. The emperor ordered 2 bunches of grapes to be washed, and he even peeled them off and put them in the mouth of the imperial concubine. The true appearance of love was even more unpalatable to Tao Ran. Sour. Don't eat it. The grapes are sweet, the emperor ate them himself. No need to be bitter, my beloved concubine. I only have you as my beloved concubine. Oh. What about Yerukyu? Yerukyu, I just treat her as my sister. Sorry, Tao Ran couldn't hold it back. Scumbag. My dear concubine, you don't know. Kaiokyu has saved my life. The emperor made up a story casually. I promised back then that I would protect Kaiokyu for the rest of my life. I must keep my word. So even if Kaiokyu can't help me, I must keep my promise and protect her. But in my heart, I have always loved you, my concubine. One person. Tao Ran didn't answer, just watched him perform hard. Where are you, my beloved concubine? Will you always be kind to me? The emperor looked at her with scrutiny. Last time, why were you so stubborn in the guest house? Tao Ran knocked down the grapes that the emperor handed him again and was very angry. The emperor had the nerve to talk about that day? I was at the banquet that day when I suddenly heard that something happened in Chuxiu Palace. Thinking of the assassination of my concubine in the previous battle, I was afraid that another assassin would enter the palace. I immediately said we rushed to the guest house where the emperor rested. At that time, the concubine was frightened and wanted to see the emperor with her own eyes. As a result, he was obstructed in every possible way, and then there was a fake father-in-law who climbed over the wall, and then there was someone who wanted to climb over the wall, and the concubine was almost sick from fear. Who would have thought that it would disturb the emperor's romantic and happy life? She flicked her sleeve and knocked the emperor's hand off again. I see. A misunderstanding was solved, and the emperor felt relieved. That day, I was in opposition to all the ministers, but my beloved concubine did not stand on my side. The emperor was willing to go against the whole world for the sake of his new love that day, and he still expects his concubine to stand up. Then why didn't my beloved concubine take over the power last time? I'm afraid the emperor has forgotten my concubine's internal injuries. Your Majesty wants to question me, but you might as well think about how long it has been since you cared about my injuries. I have recently vomited blood, and you must not know about it, right? Is this my concubine's injury? After all, you still expect me to take over the power and fight with the queen for you? Isn't the emperor afraid of the sudden death of his concubine? Tao Ran's eyes turned red with anger. He had no choice but to not feel guilty at this time. Instead, he had to keep his pace, otherwise what if the scumbag wanted to stay the night? The emperor is accompanied by beauties every day, plays and sings every night, and even ignores the government affairs. Why do you expect me to bring trouble to you? I am sick and can't sleep with you. Naturally, I am not as delicate and soft as that sister. The emperor was completely satisfied and relieved after receiving the explanation and comfort. The imperial concubine is still the imperial concubine, that's fine. The momentum is fierce, and although the words are full of complaints, the sourness is all love. The imperial concubine is still believable. The heroine who wears fast is really a boss. Author, Ruo Shui 1111. Chapter 245. The emperor, who had been depressed for many days, was now in a happy mood. With a wave of his hand, he had someone go to his private treasury to bring several things to the imperial concubine. Tao Ran took a look, they were all good things. It's a pity that no matter how good the things are, she won't be able to take them away in the future. Otherwise, if she just takes a bottle back, she can build a primary school in the countryside. Therefore, she really has little interest in these things. I promised you that I will definitely do it. The emperor took the initiative to coax her. What does the emperor mean? I will make you my queen. I don't believe it, my concubine as an emperor, he speaks with precision. This talk is like farting, and he deserves to be punished by God, so that in the plot, he ends up with a ridiculous emperor who fled. Although the ending of him and Yerukiu is not revealed in the plot, these two people, with their lofty ideals and unrealistic tempers, will definitely end up miserable. As time goes by, I will show you what people's hearts are like, and I will do it for you. I will never let down my beloved concubine. Tao Ran understood his intention, but after noticing that everyone around him was leaving one by one, he once again desperately wanted to capture her and the general's mansion in order to gain momentum. The emperor looked affectionate. Where are you, my beloved concubine? You will always stand by my side, right? I dare not promise anything. Duplicity, the emperor laughed. I heard what my beloved concubine said just now about me being worried about me. Tao Ran snorted, Your Majesty, do you think that's all I do for you? Do you know how many people outside have been arranging for you recently? How many people are secretly poking you in the hope of holding you back? My family is always helping you. Did you know? Tao Ran looked around and deliberately lowered his voice. Recently, the concubine met your two young royal brothers, and the queen also gave them many rewards. Do you know that there have been several tea parties in the capital recently, and many royal relatives have been invited, from Prince Hung to the eldest princess, and even people from far away Prince Ning and the others also participated? Are the people around the emperor becoming stranger and stranger? Are there fewer rights available? Everyone dares to look down on you. Your Majesty, to be honest, In this situation, the best way to protect yourself is to be soft with the queen. Say it again. The emperor's face turned dark. My concubine, ask your majesty to step back. No, you said that the elders are in contact with my imperial brother. This is terrible. After being reminded by the imperial concubine, he suddenly thought, if those old men want to assist the puppet emperor, who can't? It doesn't have to be him. His 8-year-old and 6-year-old imperial brothers are more obedient and easier to manipulate, right? This realization made the emperor break into a cold sweat and his legs became weak. Not caring about coaxing the beauty or eating grapes, the emperor hurriedly left in a panic. Tao Ran sneered at his back. How could this scumbag emperor hold it in? The emperor returned to Funing Hall, summoned the secret guards, and asked them to check whether the old man had really had contact with the 2 younger brothers. When I asked about it, it turned out there was indeed one. The old man of the He family celebrated his 70th birthday the day before yesterday. All the celebrities in the capital were there, including many relatives of the emperor. Could it be that it was that day? Or was it the day when the grandson of the Duke of Lu was having a full moon feast? He also said that Prince Hung was preparing to become apprentices to the 2 young princes, and several old men in the court were candidates. What is this for? The emperor stayed up all night. At dawn, the secret guard came back and told the 2 young princes that the house was like an iron bucket and that no one could pry at all. The emperor was even more panicked. Obviously, his 2 royal brothers were being protected. The reason, need to say? Of course they have value. Not good, not good. Originally, he had planned to pull the trigger and kill the 2 royal brothers directly if the situation went bad. Now it seems that even this is not possible. The emperor was like an ant on a hot pot, spinning around. I can't go on like this, I have to think of a countermeasure, otherwise, the throne will soon be lost. The next day, the emperor found the 4 ministers and Prince Hung and admitted his mistake. He burst into tears and said that he wanted to be a good emperor. He would be careful in his words and deeds in the future and hoped that everyone would give him a chance. Just kill the demon concubine, several old men said in unison. The emperor said, Yerukiu had saved my life in the early years. Although I regarded her as my own sister, I also promised. Barabara. But who wants to hear this nonsense? Do you think they are stupid? Several of them turned around and left. Although they have ignored the emperor recently, they know everything. The relationship between the emperor and the demon concubine is very good. Since the demon concubine entered the Funing Hall, the emperor has not turned over anyone else's sign. The demon concubine has completely taken over the emperor's favor. They couldn't help but sigh. They really tried their best to remind the emperor overtly and covertly not to get too deep in the mud, but obviously the emperor still couldn't let go of the demon concubine. Within a few days, there were more unfavorable situations for the emperor. There was a heavy rain in midsummer, and the people blamed the emperor and the demon concubine. When floods occurred, the blame was placed on the emperor and the demon concubine. Landslides are said to be caused by the emperor and the demon concubine. There are changes in the celestial phenomena, there are strange things in divination. The feng shui master who enters the palace suddenly spits out blood. It is natural that the emperor and the demon concubine will take the blame. For a time, there were complaints. Somewhere in the Southland, civil unrest also broke out. The gang of bandits even used the slogan King Junside. Even the rebels began to make a fuss about the emperor and the demon concubine, and the whole court felt that it could no longer go on like this. On that day, Prince Hung personally led people to the Funing Palace to arrest Yerukiu. Once again, the emperor summoned his secret guards. Does the emperor really want to fight against everyone for a witch? Don't touch concubine Chiu, everything is open to discussion. Prince Hung was furious, take down the demon concubine. However, the emperor stopped directly in front of Yerukiu, if you want to touch concubine Chiu, kill me first. The Emperor 1. Your Majesty, what you are facing now is a choice between a beautiful woman and a beautiful woman. I hope you will be careful. Prince Hung took people away. Yerukia was greatly moved, but the Emperor pushed him away. Although he won, he was not happy at all. Without power and only beauty, he would probably never be happy. He stayed up all night and went to find the imperial concubine early in the morning. Taoran was very upset. She had just finished running and planned to show off with a sword. Is my concubine's condition getting better? Slightly better. Taoran put powder on his face and acted weak again. The Emperor dawdled on for a long time before getting to the topic. How are my concubine, father, and brother doing lately? It's still the same. My father is idle and my brother is practicing in Jingwei. If I am in trouble, my beloved concubine will stand by my side, right? Taoran shook his sleeves and became angry. Does the Emperor still ask such nonsense to this day? Do you still have a conscience? Whenever something happens to you, won't I be the only one on your side? If you want to test it, then please do so. I don't want to prove it anymore. If you are dissatisfied with me, it doesn't matter, go find your Chiufei. I think your Chiufei will definitely help you. I just asked casually, why is my concubine so angry? The Emperor took out the Ruyi lock again to coax people. He believed in the imperial concubine. He wanted to ask the imperial concubine to do something, so he recently arranged some people around the imperial concubine and outside the general's mansion to conduct testing. He was pleased with the results. The general's mansion rarely participates in gatherings of wealthy families. In the imperial court and the general's office, many people spoke for him. The imperial concubine's brother, the last time the tea house heard someone slandering him, he almost got into a fight with them. Even the old general at the border wrote to several veterans, saying that he was still young and impulsive and should be given more opportunities and guidance. It can be seen that everyone in the general's mansion is loyal to him. My concubine, my father, and my brother are all idle in the capital. Do you want to move up the ladder? The Emperor smiled sincerely. Thank you very much, Wen Haha, for recalling food, for the reward from Runda Book Club, whose tail number is 46,293. Thank you for your monthly votes. I love you. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The heroine who wears fast is really a boss. Author, Ruo Shui 1111. Chapter 246. Take a walk up. Taoran looked at the Emperor and wondered what kind of medicine he was selling in his gourd. He definitely doesn't have any good intentions, he just doesn't know who is this plan for? Could it be that he was finally forced to take action? The Emperor added, the military power of Ifei's family is all in the north, and they have a good reputation in Beijing but no real power. Otherwise, the position of queen was owned by Ifei back then, and Ifei didn't want to help the family move forward, and those who just like the elders, only by strengthening the foundation can we stand firm from generation to generation. Taoran chuckled. The Emperor is not a guy who puts himself in other people's shoes. If he is so attentive for nothing, he is obviously either a traitor or a thief. This kind of thing can go up if you just go up. It is precisely because the Yu family already has great military power, so even if the Yu family's children can serve the court, they can only be idle or small positions with no real power. I am the Emperor, so I naturally have ways to help the Yu family. My beloved concubine has worked hard for me and contributed a little to my father-in-law and brother-in-law, and I am also happy. Taoran blinked and smiled like he was surprised. With such a good thing, he still begged for it and delivered it to his door with sweet words. Really? What can I do? What do you want me to do? Do you need me to recruit my father and brother to meet you? No need. I have a lot of informants around me. It would be better for my concubine to convey it to them. Your Majesty, please tell me. My beloved concubine, please listen to me and tell me slowly. As long as you follow my arrangements, maybe my beloved concubine can take a step forward. On that day, the emperor once again approached Prince Hung and 4 ministers who took care of their lives. I know I was wrong. Oh, several elders were very cold. Concubine Chiu is kind to me, and I cannot break my promise and kill her, but concubine Chiu has already exerted influence on the country, and as the king of a country, I cannot leave the country alone. I am indeed in a dilemma between love and justice, so after careful consideration, I plan to take concubine Chiu away. She was granted a title and sent to the royal Ganlu temple to practice. The emperor bowed deeply and obeyed respectfully. I will go and apologize to the queen later. From now on, I will definitely not let you worry about me. I will treat the queen well. I will stop messing around, live up to the teachings of your elders, and won't let my father down. It was rare for the emperor to be willing to back down, and his attitude was sincere, so the old men couldn't refuse to give him a chance. So, several people decided at the same time to see how the emperor performed. I will wait for the emperor to come to court tomorrow. The emperor sent Yerukyu out of the palace that day. Probably to show his attitude and determination, facing the crying Yerukyu, the emperor did not show his face, and was particularly determined, allowing Yerukyu to leave the palace despite the concubine's difficulties and the palace servants' scolding. After that, the emperor went to Cunning Palace. Although the queen did not stay, the emperor insisted on having a meal there. Even though the atmosphere was not very good, the emperor's posture was extremely low. After that, the emperor went to Yukon Palace, visited the noble concubine, and stayed at the concubine's place that night. In the next few days, the emperor went to court on time and often visited the queen and concubine. At night, there was rain and dew. The earlier emperor seemed to be back. 3 days later, the death day of the late emperor arrived. According to the rules, the emperor would take hundreds of officials to the ancestral temple to perform sacrifices. On this day, a mighty procession headed to the ancestral temple early in the morning, surrounded by people who told the recent emperor to be at the forefront. According to folk rumors, the emperor had absorbed enough dragon energy from the demon concubine. Now he was depressed, his hall was darkened, and he was weak and weak. So everyone wanted to see the emperor's true appearance at this time, so there was a huge crowd of people on the road, with 3 floors inside and 3 floors outside. The emperor wanted to restore the people's support, so he discussed with his ministers and did not clear the way. So along the way, people's comments kept getting into the emperor's ears. To say that he had been hollowed out by the demon concubine, he had already lost his dragon luck. It is also said that the spirit of the late emperor in heaven will regret it if he sees the emperor today. There are even more people who remember the heroic demeanor of the late emperor in the past, how he was a hero when he was at home and abroad. Jokes, sarcasm, sighs, and all kinds of sarcastic comments filled the emperor's ears, but there was no admiration, respect, and love. The emperor was very angry. How unreasonable! He is the emperor, the one who wishes them peace and happiness, but these ignorant people are so heartless and unjust. He is angry. He even secretly vowed that he must regain his glory and convince these people. He is much stronger than his father. We'll see. The journey that was supposed to take less than half an hour, actually took almost an hour and was just over halfway. For this, the imperial guards had to clear the way, and the officers and soldiers of the Jingui Yamen tried their best to maintain order on the road. The road was too congested and various situations occurred several times along the way. No, the front is blocked again. Originally, all the carriages and horses on the road were parked in the surrounding alleys. Unexpectedly, the horses in the alley in front were probably frightened by the noise, and somehow broke their reins and rushed out. As soon as the horse came out of the alley, it was even more difficult to calm down when it saw the dense crowd, and it actually ran directly into the crowd. Suddenly, dozens of feet away in front, people fell on their backs, wailing and mourning. The crowd was hit, and everyone hurriedly dodged, causing a stampede. People pressed against each other and they fell into one piece. In order to show his love for the people, the emperor stuck his head out of the carriage and gave orders to the imperial guards. Quickly subdue Crazy Horse. Protect the people with all your strength. The royal guards quickly began to maintain order. Everyone's attention was focused on the chaotic area ahead. Who would have thought that at this moment, a cold arrow would suddenly arrive? There were 20 or 30 arrows, shooting straight at the emperor's carriage from all directions. How dangerous! The emperor stuck his head out and was almost hit by an arrow. The palace guards surrounding the carriage were all paying attention to the stampede ahead, and when they were not prepared, several people were hit in an instant. And the second round of arrow rain has arrived. At this time, thanks to the concubine's brother Yu Hong, he fell from the sky. While shouting escort, he led his Jingwei brothers forward and formed a circle of protection around the carriage as quickly as possible. Yu Hong jumped on the carriage shaft and placed his shield on the carriage window with one hand to prevent bows and arrows from breaking through the window. With the other hand, he danced the long sword in his hand in an airtight manner, blocking the incoming arrows from multiple directions as much as possible. The guards returned to defend themselves. When the assassins saw that the opportunity was lost, they fled over the walls one after another. Finally, the danger was saved. The Royal Forest Army all dispatched to capture the assassin. Is the Emperor okay? Yu Hong knelt down. Yu Iking's hard work will be rewarded. This is the Emperor's method. Assassin. He is pretending to be his bodyguard. He just wants to use this method to make the people he trusts rise quickly. Assassination. Anyway, many times recently. Starting from the assassination of the imperial concubine, he happened to use it as an excuse again and again. No one would doubt it, but it would just let the world see that he, the emperor, was much more difficult than they thought. To this day, there are still people who are eyeing the throne and spare no effort to assassinate him. The heroine who wears fast is really a boss. Author, Ruo Shui 1111. Chapter 247. Everything today is planned by the emperor himself. He knew that today's trip would be crowded with people, and everyone from the imperial guards to the imperial guards would have to participate in setting up defenses. And Yu Hong is serving in Jingwei. No matter how idle he was in the past, he will definitely get a task today. No, the Jingwei Yamen is responsible for the safety of the surrounding streets. Therefore, the emperor asked the imperial concubine to inform Yu Hong in advance of the accidents that might happen in the area around him, and asked him to behave well. The emperor wants to give him the title of guardian and savior. Everyone saw the danger just now. In front of all the officials and people, such a brave and fearless behavior not only won everyone's praise, but also reminded everyone of the hard work of the general's office. As a result, many people also spoke up and asked the emperor to reward Yu Hong heavily. The emperor followed suit and said in public, "I will definitely reward you well. Yu Hong, you will be my savior from now on, and everyone in my royal family will be grateful to you and the Yu family." The emperor used this method, and when he went to court the next day, he successfully promoted Yu Hongguan to the third level, and directly became the deputy commander of the Beijing Guard, the only one under him. Merits deserve rewards, and all officials have no objections to this. The Yu family received 100 taels of gold, 10,000 taels of silver, and in addition to 10 boxes of various rewards, they also received a painting of the late emperor with the words "loyal to the emperor and serve the country." Even Yu's father, who was idle as a counselor in the government office, also had a new job, training at the Royal Forest Army's main school. The emperor's reasons were sufficient. Who knew that the Royal Guard's performance during the chaos yesterday was too chaotic and weak, and almost went wrong? It can be seen that the usual training is very problematic, and we need a good general who is experienced in facing chaos and facing the enemy to lead us. Everyone still has no objection to this. It's all as it should be. Yutong from the harem also took advantage of it. On that day, the imperial concubine was promoted to imperial concubine. Yutong once again became the most jealous woman in the entire palace after Yeruki left the palace. The reason for rescuing the emperor was just and sufficient. No matter how uncomfortable the queen was, she had no choice but to put the phoenix seal on the canonization decree, send the reward, and say a few more bitter words. Tao Ran looked at the sky and smiled. The emperor was not too stupid yet, and finally took the first step to counterattack. He was very generous and directly used this method to bring the Yu family and him into the same camp again. Her position is now only one step away from the queen. She will definitely become ambitious, and the queen will definitely be wary of her, so she and the queen will naturally return to tit for tat. And the emperor kept saying that the Yu family was his savior, which was nothing more than completely binding the Yu family and telling the world not to touch him again. Even if the old people abandoned him, he would still have the support of the general's mansion. As for the imperial concubine, that's fine too. Tao Ran was quite satisfied. The higher her status is now, the less she will be scolded when she becomes the queen mother later. The better the reputation, the smoother life will be for Yutong when he comes back in the future, and the new emperor will not be too embarrassed. No matter how bad he was still rewarded so much. If the emperor wants to cause trouble, of course she has to help him. Only by going deep into the enemy camp can you steal first-hand intelligence. Knowing yourself and your enemy, this time it's her turn to help Yutong to kill the emperor. Since Tao Ran had received the benefits from the emperor, he naturally wanted to help the emperor share his worries. So, with the emperor's instructions, she once again began to oppose the queen. The two once again returned to their previous state of at war with each other. Several times she was so angry that the queen was speechless and left in a puff of her sleeves. The emperor was very satisfied with this, and treated her with a lot of sweet words and various rewards. The emperor also asked her to ask Yu Hong to run 2 errands, which were not difficult but troublesome and offended. Tao Ran told Yu Hong to do it well. She knew clearly that the emperor was conducting a final test on brother Yu. It is both a test of ability and loyalty. If it works, they might be able to touch his trump card. She could also see that the emperor's eyes had become more decisive recently, and the people around him changed frequently, and judging from their aura and mobility, they should all be masters. Tao Ran went to inquire and found out that these people were not arranged by the queen. So does this mean that the emperor's recent actions are very important, very secret, and very busy? For the next month, the emperor was extremely obedient. When he couldn't get a word in at court, he didn't do much trouble. As for the harem, the emperor still likes to go to Yukon Palace the most, but the imperial concubine's health has never been better, so she can't sleep with her. The emperor would turn over the sign every other day to try to get even rain and dew. For a time, there was nothing to criticize about the former harem. It seemed as if the passionate relationship between him and the demon concubine a while ago was all an illusion. On Yeruki's side, everyone is paying attention. The emperor only visited people once in a while, and didn't bother too much. In a blink of an eye, the annual autumn hunt is approaching. Although the emperor had no martial arts skills, he always liked this activity. He has been imprisoned in the palace for many years, and he misses his childhood time in another courtyard the most. Returning to the countryside relaxes and delights him. And his own archery skills are indeed good. After all, what I did most when I was in the other courtyard that day when I was free and bored every day was to shoot birds in the sky and fish in the lake. It was a rare opportunity like this, how could he not seize it? This autumn hunting was like previous years. The internal security of the paddock was taken care of by the Royal Forest Army, and the outer security was guarded by the Jingwei. The emperor's protection was provided by his bodyguards and bodyguards. This time the Yu family received important treatment. As the chief drill officer of the Royal Forest Army, Father Yu was responsible for the defense of the east area of the paddock. As the deputy commander of Jingui, Yu Hong also led thousands of people under his command this time. As in previous years, the queen is sitting in the palace, but other high-ranking concubines like Yu Tong will accompany her to relax in the paddock. In addition, most of the royal relatives, civil and military officials participated in the hunt. The paddock is 100 miles away from the outskirts of Beijing. Whether it's close or far, it takes 10 days to walk there. In order to facilitate the handling of political affairs, even the 4 ministers who care about life will go with them to watch the excitement. A team of tens of thousands of people marched to the paddock. The environment has changed, the emperor and his ministers are enjoying themselves together, and the atmosphere has gradually become more relaxed. In the first 2 days, the Lord was familiar with the environment. Mainly for trial hunting, banquets, and fun, which is quite comfortable. In the next few days, several captains of the hunting team will be selected through competition. Then the captain will lead the team into the paddock and the competition will begin. For 3 days, each team will set up camp separately and hunt according to their own abilities. After 3 days, the winner or loser will be judged based on the value of the prey. Tao Ran had the highest status among the concubines participating in the autumn hunting, so he took charge of all affairs between the concubines. So she arranged for herself a small, quiet courtyard a little far away from the concubines, close to mountains and water. With such beautiful mountains, water, and scenery, she didn't want to be disturbed by others. Of course, it was not easy for people to keep an eye on her and her people when they came in and out. Excellent. To be honest, her eyelids had been twitching in the past 2 days, and she felt that something big was going to happen. The heroine who wears fast is really a boss. Author, Ruo Shui 1111. Chapter 248. It was a quiet night, and Tao Ran, who had been busy for a long time, planned to have a good time. The green mountains and green waters shrouded in mist were too beautiful, and the mountains and flowers everywhere filled the air with sweetness. She had not experienced such a picturesque environment in the real world for many years and was intoxicated by it. When she walked out of the small courtyard, she made people sit by the river at the foot of the mountain. I set up a table on the grass, placed some wine, and hung a string of lanterns. I thought it would be beautiful to drink against the dim moonlight. To be honest, the place she chose was really good. The mountain is supported by the mountain and the stream flows around it. If it were not possible to climb over the mountain and enter from the back, ordinary people would not be able to walk to this area, let alone the concubines who would accidentally step on it. She was in a happy mood. After having 2 drinks, she thought about the film that director and had caused a sensation in Hollywood that day. Yu Jiaolong became famous in one battle, and the fight scene in Zhuhai was so beautiful that she couldn't help but want to try it. Qinggong was something that was not available in her time. I wonder if at her current level, can she achieve the beauty in the movie? She stood up and put on a light simple outfit. Recently, she has been practicing martial arts diligently. However, she was afraid that the emperor would know that her injury had healed long ago, so she practiced secretly in her palace. She didn't dare to make a big noise, and she didn't dare to practice too selflessly, so she never fully enjoyed herself. Every day I can only focus on practicing my moves and internal skills. This time, the opportunity has come. After sending everyone away, she planned to have a good practice. She gathered her strength and rushed up a bamboo tree. Yu Tong already knew the skill, but Tao Ran had never used it before. Tao Ran fell in love with it the first time he used it. It's fresh, exciting, and so much fun. She decided. After returning to the real world, you must practice martial arts. For this reason, when she met Yu Tong's father and brother recently, She asked them to get more books on the exercises for her to read. She has memorized several books and plans to go back and think about it slowly. She walked through the trees in the forest, just like those elves described in books, jumping up and down, and it was a lot of fun. All the squirrels and hares were frightened by her and scurried after her. She found a snow-white rabbit, and thinking that Ruyi wanted to catch a rabbit to raise during this hunt, she chased it. However, the field of view was not good that night, and the hare was scurrying very fast. She chased it for hundreds of breaths, and she was exhausted and sweating, but she could not catch the hare. She just watched the hare scurry into the forest and could not be seen again. She was slightly disappointed and could only turn around and leave with a gasp. Forget it, she can always catch the rabbit after dawn tomorrow. But as soon as she raised her head, there was a figure, which startled her. There was a man in black in front of him, holding a white rabbit in his hand, standing dozens of feet away from her. He held up the rabbit's ears and stretched out his hand. This is the rabbit that the queen is chasing. I want to lend flowers to the Buddha and give them to the queen. Can it be convenient for us to chat for a few words? Okay, Taoran walked over. Please come this way. The person who came was none other than Prince Ning. Taoran didn't know how or when he came, whether he passed by chance or was staring at her on purpose. She only knew that his martial arts was much better than hers. Because she didn't even realize there was anyone else nearby. Yutong's martial arts skills are pretty good, even better than most of the guards walking in the palace. But this one is obviously much stronger than Yutong. The rabbit was obviously running to the other side, but when he appeared, he had already disappeared behind her. It can be seen that if she claims to be an elf, then his Qinggong is like a ghost, without a trace. King Ning finally knew how to avoid suspicion, and always kept a distance of 10 feet away from her. He followed her from a distance and told her, "Your Majesty, you can rest assured. I have made inquiries and there is no one else nearby." Taoran could not refuse this prince. It's not that he's good looking, it's mainly because maybe this guy can stand upright. He is smart, capable, thoughtful, and shrewd, all of which are much better than the current emperor. Your Majesty, you are so excited. When he came to the open space where Taoran had set up a table, and after scanning the surroundings, Prince Ning raised his eyebrows and curled his lips. Taoran saw a trace of his teasing and couldn't help but ask first, "Is the prince following me?" "Of course not. Is that a coincidence? The mountains and rivers in the north are completely different from those in the south. The moonlight is hazy tonight. I got excited and planned to walk around and see the mountains and rivers in the capital. I walked along the river and happened to meet the Empress. What a coincidence. I don't believe it." The entire paddock was covered with high mountains, with dozens of them on top. She didn't believe that someone would accidentally bump into them. Prince Ning smiled and did not respond, but he sat down in front of the table instead of being a guest. There was an empty cup on the table, so he filled it himself. "Taoran." She smiled, "You are really rude. I came here as a favor. And I think that since you and I have been around each other, there is no need to be too unfamiliar. The favor your highness is referring to is this rabbit." Taoran's fingers were tied to the rabbit by the table as he wrapped a cane around its legs. "Of course not. That is." Prince Ning raised his head and smiled without saying a word. "Taoran, His Royal Highness Prince Ning is not happy today. Because I have many questions, I would like to ask the imperial concubine to give me some clarification." Taoran sat down opposite him. This Prince Ning might be smarter than she thought. "I would like to thank you in advance for your advice." Taoran knew what he was thanking for. More than a month ago, when the emperor was almost ignored, Prince Ning planned to return to the Southland, and Prince Hung and others also agreed. Taoran found out about this. How does this work? Prince Ning might be the one she wants, someone who wants to pursue a great career. Naturally, I won't be able to come back easily this time. It's rare to find decent candidates, so let's keep them under observation first. Supporting the little prince or something like that was really not within her scope of consideration. So, on the day when Prince Ning entered the palace to say goodbye to the concubine, Taoran went out of his way to encounter him. I believe that His Highness can stay for a while longer. Oh, during the concubine's birthday, Prince Ning and Yu Tong had two small collaborations, so he listened. But, however, although there is no war in the Southland at this time, as the commander-in-chief, I cannot leave for too long. But as a minister, as a relative of the emperor, when the emperor is not so capable, shouldn't you shoulder more burdens to share the country's worries? She specifically emphasized that the emperor is not good and shares the country's worries. It is for the country, not for the emperor to share the worries. If he has some brains and some thoughts, he will definitely understand. At that time, the emperor's reputation had hit rock bottom, and even the common people were cursing his downfall. It was hard not to be tempted by Prince Ning's ambitions. What kind of ability does this king have? Maybe. Your Majesty, I do have confidence in this king, he tested. I just stand high and think about the people and talents. Taoran lowered his voice again. I heard that bandits have risen 300 miles away, saying that they want to oust the emperor. Instead of rushing back to the south to fulfill his duties, the prince might as well go to suppress the bandits. It is still a war, but it can enrich yourself to a greater extent and win the favor of the court and the royal family. And the respect of everyone in the capital. Once again, she skipped the emperor's respect. The next day, King Ning submitted a memorial requesting him to lead troops to suppress the bandits. He was just giving it a try. Logically, this kind of thing would not be his turn. But he didn't expect that this would actually happen. It wasn't just the general's office's support, but the fact that he encountered no resistance at all. It was so smooth that he wouldn't believe it if no one was secretly helping. In this way, he spent a month and easily defeated the bandits and returned to Beijing. On the day he entered the city, he was not only supported and cheered by the people, but also commended by the court and the royal family. Whether it's reputation or actual benefits, it's a huge step forward. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The heroine who wears fast is really a boss. Author, Ruo Shui 1111. Chapter 249. At that time, Prince Ning became more and more curious about Yu Tong. The imperial concubine seems to respect him. It is even suspected of deliberately encouraging and strengthening his ambition. Prince Ning didn't dare to think about it carefully. What does Yu Tong do as a concubine? She is already under one person, and her family has been honored for generations. What else does she lack? What is her purpose? After thinking about it carefully, he always felt that Yu Tong was a puzzler. He couldn't understand it and was curious about it. Because of this, he has been secretly observing Yu Tong. However, in the past 2 days, he once again discovered that during every banquet, Yu Tong's eyes would pass between the male guests of the royal family many times. Especially when riding a horse or giving orders, she can watch it with great interest. It makes it seem like she is choosing a new emperor. Ridiculous. Is she the Queen Mother? My king, thank you very much for your advice. Okay, the pleasantries are over, let's get straight to the point. Taoran didn't want to have a romantic relationship with a man. For her, all those things that she didn't have could be omitted. Your Majesty, it's true as rumored. She's so happy. You are not as cheerful as last time in the guest house. Instead of testing and testing, it is better to get straight to the point. You saw it? Prince Ning chuckled. He had indeed been testing him since the moment he showed up. If she had no intentions towards him, she would definitely not have an affair with him, let alone tolerate him coming to her place and sitting down to drink her wine. He deliberately made his behavior slightly inappropriate, just to see where her bottom line was. The lower this line is, the more interested she is in him. Then I'll tell you straight, Your Majesty. Prince Ning put down his cup, stopped smiling, and became serious. My Majesty, are you from the Emperor's side? Why are you asking? On the day when the concubine celebrated her birthday, the Empress rushed to the throne and took me into the guest courtyard. I clearly noticed all the ill intentions of the Empress. After that, all the people around the Emperor were sentenced to death. Although I have not yet known what happened, although he witnessed it, he knew that it was closely related to the Empress. This made me sure that the Empress and the Emperor were not the same person. Later, the Empress reminded me to capture the assassins and perform meritorious service. I knew that those captured were clearly the Emperor's dead soldiers. With all these things added together, can I still not understand the Empress's attitude towards the Emperor? However, the Empress's behavior recently has been completely different. While leading the whole family to be promoted step by step, while becoming a beloved concubine again, and even antagonizing the Empress, all his actions were to help the Emperor stand out. No matter how you look at it, both the imperial concubine and the Empress are the Emperor's right-hand men. The Empress's family even served as the Emperor's pawns, loyal and loyal. Therefore, I am puzzled. Is the Empress' behavior contradictory? Taoran raised his eyebrows and took a drink. However, that's not all the weirdness. Oh. The Empress has always said that her internal injuries have not healed, and she cannot even sleep with her. But just now, this person who was flying over eaves and walking over walls, walking through the woods, and quietly enjoying the autumn breeze and drinking wine, doesn't look like her internal injuries have not healed, right? Prince Ning leaned forward slightly. So I am curious, what is your true face like? If Yu Tong had no intentions towards him, he might not care about this matter. But she had crossed paths with him several times, and he wanted to find out. He looked at the woman in front of him who could easily play the Emperor around, and he didn't dare to look down on her. If she is a friend, he is willing to make her. But whenever he sensed hostility, he had to stay away. Taoran looked directly at him. When judging a person, it is natural to see with your own eyes and to believe with your ears. If Prince Ning can sit here and talk with me, doesn't it mean that he already has his own judgment in his heart? You have seen everything about me with your own eyes. I'm not hiding it from you. Why do you have so many worries? I am in the harem, and you are in the south. It makes no sense for me to plot against you. I have always been sincere to you, how can you not feel it? As for the reason, I don't believe that you can't taste it. Prince Ning didn't answer for a while. So, Yu Tong admitted that he has been playing Emperor? He could see that Yu Tong did not like the Emperor at all and hated him. He didn't understand that the general's mansion was already so powerful, but how could Yu Tong still hate his husband who supported him so much? Yes, I do believe in my own judgment. But I don't know your queen's ultimate purpose. After all, you are already the imperial concubine. Taoran smiled and didn't think about whether to answer for a moment. In fact, it doesn't matter what inappropriate things she has to say, right? Anyway, this is ancient times, and there are no recordings, so no evidence will be preserved. So what if King Ning bites her back one day? Who will believe him? Seeing that she didn't answer, Prince Ning thought that he really didn't need to inquire about her, so he said. I am not stalking your empress today. Rather, I live in the Huangqin area. When I was relaxing tonight, I found that the forest was a little too lively. Who knows that I am better in kung fu, so those people did not find me. I followed those sneaky guys around. Later, when I arrived nearby, I heard some noises. I thought there were people walking at night in this area, so I followed them. Unexpectedly, it was the Empress with good martial arts who was looking for fun. You're talking about the Emperor's place being very busy. It seemed that the Emperor was indeed planning to cause trouble. Yes. So I also want to remind my queen, if nothing happens, you should move less at night to avoid exposing your secret. This was the favor he brought. What is the prince's ambition? Tao Ran suddenly asked. Prince Ning was stunned for a moment. I only want to protect the southern land. But facts have proven that many times, many things are beyond your control. If you want your ministers to come, don't you have to go to the capital? Even if you are the prince, you can't be your own master. Tao Ran planned to take the initiative. If you want to stop being a chess piece that can be picked up and put down at any time, you have to be the chess player. Tao Ran looked at Prince Ning. Actually, the prince just downplayed his ambition, right? You love the rivers and mountains of the Southland, and you also appreciate the mountains and rivers of the capital, so you spend all your time admiring the scenery in the middle of the night. In that case, you care so much about the Southland, how can you not care about other areas of the country? The prince who cares about the country and the people, doesn't his ambition be to ensure peace and prosperity for the country and the people? Tao Ran was not testing him, but was convinced that he had great ambitions. Otherwise, he would not have stayed in the capital for profit that day, would not have come to test her repeatedly, would not have been paying attention to the emperor, and would not have sat here talking nonsense to her now. He would not follow her suggestion to suppress the bandits. If his goal is only in the Southland, is he doing all this to be full? He should have gone home long ago. Prince Ning chuckled twice and did not refute. Instead, he poured a glass of wine for Tao Ran. What about the imperial concubine? What is your ambition? On this point, perhaps I and His Highness have similar goals. I hope that I will not be manipulated, that I will not be reduced to useless, and that I can make my own decisions. Do you want to be a chess player? Prince Ning was surprised, almost thinking that this woman had too much appetite. No. I am a straight person and don't like to use my brain, so I am not interested in playing chess. I just want to find a chess player who can play chess and play well. I am willing to stay on the chessboard, as long as I hope that the chess player can ensure that I and my family have a safe place, and that we will never be abandoned. The heroine who wears fast is really a boss. Author, Ruo Shui 1111. Chapter 250. On the third day after arriving at the paddock, the emperor came to Tao Ran. Tao Ran was upset and was thinking about how to get rid of this man, but suddenly he noticed that the emperor's expression was unnatural and his whole body was a little tense. Something's wrong with him. Tong, I want to ask you for help. At this point, the only person I can trust is you. Coming. Is what is coming finally coming? Tao Ran was a little excited. She quickly adjusted her expression. Your Majesty, please speak out when you have something to say. As long as I can help, I will do my best. The emperor came up and took her hand. Tao Ran resisted the desire to let go and sat down at the table with him. If I want to seize power, I need the help of you and your family. Seize power? Yes. You also know that I have ambitions but no real power. The entire court is controlled by those old ministers. How hateful they are. I am ignored by them, they don't regard me as the emperor at all. They also force me after repeatedly compromising, they don't have the slightest appearance of being courtiers. They are all rebellious. If this continues, I'm afraid I won't even be able to be a puppet emperor. How can I protect you and this country? Tong, you understand me? Your Majesty. Tao Ran looked distressed, with red eyes, biting his lip. What does your Majesty want to do? In 3 days, the hunt will officially begin. At that time, all participants will enter the paddock. At that time, I will officially seize power. What can I do? A lot of. Emperor Balabala said. 1, 2, 3. One by one, he had already thought it over thoroughly and had a complete plan. But he spoke in a very concise manner, only half of each point, and he still had some reservations about Yutong. I will convey the emperor's wishes to my father and brother. In addition, write a letter to your grandfather. My 1,000-mile horse is ready. Send it now. It will reach the old general tomorrow at the latest. The emperor means. The old general only needs to show off and march hundreds of miles south with tens of thousands of troops. I will take advantage of this situation to force those traitors to retreat. I have left enough time for the old general and only tens of thousands of troops. 2 days are enough to prepare. I understand. Really understand. Ah, Emperor. After going around and around, it's still pretty much the same as in the plot. In the plot, he attacked the queen and the Chen family first. This time, he planned to use hunting to attack the old people directly. After taking over the power of the government, the general's mansion, which pressed south without the permission of the court, will also be charged with treason again, and will also meet a disastrous end. They, the Yu family, are just as damned by the emperor. The emperor had obviously been preparing for a long time. Indeed, all the officials in the court and all the important ministers came. The emperor's relatives and even the 2 young princes who had been regarded as threats by the emperor also came. What a great opportunity, you can control it all in one go. Those who follow will stay, those who go against will be eliminated. Simple and crude but effective. Almost done once and for all. Good thing he figured it out. Only after leaving the palace, in such a place, could the emperor use his personal guards in various ways under the pretext of hunting. He had arranged for Yu Fu to join the royal guards and Yu Hong to join the imperial guards in advance, and these chess pieces would be put to use immediately. He still has personal guards and hidden guards on hand. If he proceeds normally according to his plan, there should be no big problem. Tong Tong, as long as it is done, I will be the real emperor, and you can finally take this last step. This is my promise to you. We must only succeed and not fail, okay? My concubines, all obey the emperor. I will definitely live up to you. Tao Ran really wanted to spit it on this dog emperor's face. The emperor scheduled his action for 3 days, the day after the hunt officially began. At that time, everyone's thoughts will be focused on the hunting ground. The generals and most of the imperial guards will be inside the paddock. Once he takes action, they will scream every day. And the veterans and ladies who stayed in the other courtyard, from Prince Hung, several ministers who cared about life, to a group of senior civil servants, would be his most important bargaining chips. As long as these people are caught, who can be disobedient? When those guys in the paddock came out, not only were the daylilies cold, but they had all thrown themselves into the trap. The emperor is very confident. After the emperor left, Tao Ran summoned a father-in-law and asked him to send a letter to summon her father and brother. But almost no one knew that this father-in-law was the queen's man. He is the intermediary between her and the queen. The emperor wants to gain power, so let's see who will bid farewell to the stage of power in the end. However, Tao Ran felt that although he could use his tactics to his advantage, the rhythm must not follow the emperor's pace. We can't let him go smoothly, be well prepared, and expand his chances of winning. Now that she had the upper hand, she had to disrupt his plan first. Is there a way? There is. 2 days passed, and tonight, another banquet was held in the other courtyard. Since tomorrow is the day when the hunt officially begins, the emperor and several teams will enter the paddock at dawn, so while everyone is here, your lord suggests that we discuss some matters first. But as soon as the emperor sat down, he saw his trusted guard winking at him. When he stood up and asked, his expression suddenly changed. Just when he was about to signal someone to silence him, right in front of him, an old minister became angry and threw out the book, just for this reason. The booklet was just sent from Jingli. Someone reported that Yerukyu of Ganlu Temple is pregnant, and it has been confirmed. As soon as the news came out, there was an uproar. Demon concubine. This is unreasonable. Isn't the demon concubine taking care of King Xiu? Why is she pregnant? Needless to say, as a demon concubine, she can do scandalous things in the palace that day. What? Could it be that the demon concubine and bitch also did such shameful things in royal Buddhism? You evil beast! It's so embarrassing. The ministers were indignant and demanded that Yerukyu be executed. The emperor was recently stable, so they temporarily let Yerukyu go for the sake of the emperor. Originally, the demon concubine had brought disrepute to the royal family, and various versions of the story were circulated. Now that the demon concubine is pregnant in the temple, she will turn the entire royal family into a huge laughingstock. The emperor was a little panicked and could only say, "Don't rush to judge. This child is mine." There was a sudden silence. Everyone looked at it, but after a few breaths, they started talking again. The royal family can't afford to gamble. The demon concubine was caught cheating on her earlier. How did the emperor know that this was your child? Yes, how can the emperor prove it? If it is an evildoer, it will mess up the royal bloodline. Who can afford it? How can we be worthy of the late emperor and the ancestors of the royal family? Your Majesty, you must not take any chances with this kind of thing. Furthermore, the emperor does not have an eldest son, so there is no room for any mistakes with this first heir. That's right, just because this child is the daughter of a demon concubine, the emperor cannot take the risk of having everyone in the world laugh at it and question the royal family's orthodoxy. You're right. It's better to be wrong than to miss something. The evil concubine must be eliminated. The emperor was angry from the bottom of his heart. He felt everyone's malice. He seemed to be back 2 months ago. No one stands with him. None.